What's up, everybody? Welcome back to One More Guitar. Thank you for checking out the video. Got something a little different for you today. Now, you can see I've got all these tools laid out here in front of me, and that's because I was talking to a friend of mine the other day, and he was asking me about the stuff that I kind of use regularly to see if there was anything he needed to pick up. And it got me thinking, maybe that's information that I should share with everybody. I usually put links of the gear I'm using in videos, but I also put links to all of the tools I use. But I figured it'd be a good idea to just go over them and tell you what I would put in my basic guitar toolkit. That's going to be stuff that I use regularly, not something that's specialized that I only need to use every now and then, but stuff that I really need to use pretty much every time I work on a guitar. So let's go over this a little bit. Before we get started, I want to say that you can find most of this stuff in any store that sells automotive or hardware supplies, but maybe some exceptions being the guitar cleaning stuff. But I will put some Amazon links in the description if you're interested in checking it out that way and supporting the channel. Affiliate links pay back a percentage of the total purchase to the channel without any extra cost to you, so it's a good way to support the channel. But otherwise, you can probably find this in your local Walmart or Target or wherever. Most of it. Okay, the first thing I'll start with is a screwdriver kit. A screwdriver and a socket kit is even better. I don't use the sockets as much, but I will use them sometimes to tighten the nuts on the tuners. But I do use the different size screwdrivers all the time. For example, moving saddles, raising and lowering bridges, taking off the pick guards, anything like that you're going to need a screwdriver for, and so I highly recommend a set that's got several different heads and different sizes, because all different guitars have multiple size screws on each guitar, much less from guitar to guitar. So definitely a good thing here. Alright, the next thing on my toolbox is kind of in the same ballpark, and this is a full set of Allen wrenches. These sets are not that expensive. I have gotten so frustrated before trying to find the right Allen wrench to fit the right guitar. I have a drawer full of Allen wrenches, and I thought I could keep it straight, but I could not. And eventually, I just said, screw it, I'm getting one of these. And I got this, and I've never had a problem again. I keep them all in here, and if I ever need to work on a guitar, I just get this thing out, and anything I need has been here so far anyway. I'm not going to say it'll always be there, but so far, everything I've needed has been in this kit. Alright, the next thing you need is a pair of good wire cutters, obviously for changing strings, and having a good pair just makes it easy to cut the strings and be done with it and move on. Not a lot to say about that, but definitely something that needs to be in every guitarist toolkit. Speaking of changing strings, the next thing we'll talk about is a string winder. Obviously, you use one of these to wind and unwind the strings, and it just makes it easier. You can get them like this, where they come with wire clippers already in it, and it even comes with a little peg remover for acoustic guitars. So these are nice tools. However, if you're changing a lot of strings, I highly recommend a powered one. It's like a little power drill. If you have one of these and a Fender guitar with vintage style tuners, you can change strings super quick. It's awesome. Again, it was worth it to me to go ahead and fork over a little extra money to get the powered one. So I use this a lot. Alright, the next thing I use quite a bit is guitar polish. Now, I use this Ernie Ball stuff, and it's for everyday use. So I figured it would be pretty easy on the guitars, and I haven't had any problems with it, and I've used it on all of my guitars multiple times. So definitely recommend this stuff. And one of the cool things about it is it comes with its own microfiber cloth, which is another thing on my list. You're definitely going to want some microfiber cloths to take care of your guitar and wipe it down and make sure you're not causing scratches or anything like that. Alright, the next thing on my list is this little magnetic tray. I know it seems like such a simple thing, but when you're taking out a lot of guitar screws, for example, this Jazzmaster back here, I think there's like 15 screws in that pick guard. When you're removing a lot of screws, you don't want to lose them. I fumble screws all the time, and so I just got this, and every time I take one out, I drop it right in there, and I have not lost a screw in a long time. So highly recommend this. Very useful when you're working on guitars. The next thing I use a lot is fretboard conditioner, and the one I use is this F1 oil from Music Nomad. I use this all the time, and I've seen a lot of other people talking about using this too. This is good stuff. It'll make your fretboard really pop and keep it conditioned, so definitely something I use a lot. Alright, next we have another product from Music Nomad. This is the Fine Fret Polish. I don't use this quite as much as the F1 oil or the guitar polish, but sometimes you get guitars with scratchy frets. I've gotten Epiphones and Squires before that both had, some scratchy frets. You take a little of this stuff, put it on a rag, wipe them off, your frets are like glass. It's a really nice product. You gotta be a little careful though and make sure you don't get it on the fretboard. But otherwise, this is good stuff. You can use painter's tape to mask off the fretboard, or you can use these fret guards like I'm using here, and I'll try to put some links to these in the description as well. While we're on Music Nomad, I'll talk about this thing sitting here in front of me. This is a neck cradle for the guitar. You don't have to get something that's built exactly for that. You can use a pillow or a beanbag or whatever you want. But I really like this one because it's soft, and I feel like it's kind of designed to hold the different necks. Say if you wanted to put, something like a mandolin on here, or something with just a different size neck. This is very useful for that. You can prop it up at different angles. And one of my favorite parts is it comes with these 4 little containers here where I can just, take my tools and drop them in here when I'm done. So this saves a lot of space too. So I do recommend this, but you don't have to use this. I just recommend finding something you can use reliably to hold your guitar neck up when you're working on it. Next on the list is a string action gauge, and this should have probably been number 1. I used to work on my guitars and I would just eyeball the action all the time, and when I finally broke down and paid the $13 for this, it has been a lifesaver. I know exactly where my strings are set up, and I definitely recommend, if you don't have a string action gauge and you're serious about working on guitars and getting your guitar set up right, get one of these. They're less than 20 bucks and totally worth it. Next is something I don't use quite as much, but it is still very useful when it's necessary, is a fret rocker. Sometimes, you have a suspicion of high frets, or you may think something's wrong, and you can use the fret rocker to lay it across the frets and find out where your high spots are on the frets. That's really not something that you're going to be doing a whole lot, but for me, this is kind of a cheap tool that was very useful into at least diagnosing some problems of guitars and trying to fix them. This toolkit isn't exactly designed to be filing stuff on guitars, but I did want to include this because I think it is a handy tool to have, and again, it's pretty affordable. Next on the list, I have feeler gauges, and you can pick these up in any automotive store. What you want to use these for is to measure the action of the strings, say at specific points. Say you want to know at the 7th fret exactly how far away the string is from the fret, or maybe on the first 3 frets, sometimes you need to know if the nut is not cut correctly, and this definitely comes in handy for that. Again, I think these were under $10. It may have been under $5, I'm not sure, but it's a handy tool to have, especially when you think there's a problem with the nut or the action. Alright, and the last thing on my list are fretboard radius gauges. And what I use this for is to make sure the string radius matches the neck radius. When you have a guitar that has saddles that's individually adjustable, it's really easy to get your strings out of radius. So what I do is I take one of these, I place it under the strings, and I make sure that all of my strings rest across this radius just like it would on the fretboard. So again, it's not something that I use with anything that's got a stop bar tailpiece like Gibson type guitars, but if it has adjustable saddles, then I use this to make sure that I've got the radius correct. And it's definitely handy. Alright, so that's it. That's the stuff that I would put in my basic guitars toolkit. This is the stuff that I use on a regular basis that I think would be very helpful to you if you're trying to work on guitars or set up guitars. Now, of course, there's tons of other tools out there that you can always add later, like fret files and nut files, soldering irons, stuff like that that you may need to work on guitars a little more extensively. But this is the stuff that I use on every single guitar that I have, and stuff that I use almost on a daily basis. So I wanted to share that with you in case you're interested in working on guitars yourself and just weren't sure exactly which tools you need now versus stuff that you can get later when you actually need it. So I hope this helps. Please remember to take a second to hit the like button if you liked the video, and until next time, take it easy and keep playing.